Kim Hana stood at the window of the control tower, looking out at the red sunrise over New Busan Colony. The sight should have made her feel peaceful, but instead her stomach twisted with worry. 8 months had passed since their last message, from Earth. 8 long months of silence. She turned back to her desk where papers lay scattered everywhere. Food reports, equipment failure lists, and complaint forms from angry colonists. Each paper told the same story. They were running out of everything they needed to survive. Administrator Kim called Park Jin-woo as he walked into her office. The security chief looked tired. Dark circles hung under his eyes and his uniform was wrinkled. "We need to talk." Hana nodded and pointed to the chair across from her desk. "What is it this time?" "The food riots in Sector 7 got worse last night," Jin-woo said, sitting down heavily. "My men had to use shock batons to break up the crowd. 3 people went to the hospital." Hana closed her eyes and rubbed her temples. The headaches were getting worse every day. "How bad is the food situation?" Dr. Lee Min-ho ran the numbers again. "If we keep eating at the current rate, we have maybe 6 weeks left. That's if nothing else goes wrong." "Something always goes wrong," Hana said with a bitter laugh. "What about the mining equipment? Can we trade minerals for food?" Jin-woo shook his head. "The communication array is still broken. We can't contact any trading ships. We can't even send a distress signal." Hana had heard this before, but it still hit her like a punch to the gut. When the quantum communication system had failed, they had lost their link to the galaxy. No messages in, no messages out. They were alone on a planet that was 47 light years from Earth. "What about Dr. Lee's repair work?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "He says he needs parts we don't have. Special crystals and computer chips that we can't make here. He's been trying to build replacements, but—" Jin-woo spread his hands helplessly. A loud bang came from outside, followed by shouting voices. Both Hana and Jin-woo rushed to the window. Down in the main plaza, a crowd of colonists had gathered around the broken fountain. Someone was standing on top of it, waving his arms and yelling. "That's Kang Seoho," Jin-woo said. "One of the miners. He's been stirring up trouble for weeks." Hana could see more people joining the crowd. Angry faces turned up toward the control tower. Some of them pointed at her window. "They blame me," she said quietly. "You're not responsible for the communication system breaking down," Jin-woo replied, "or for Earth not sending supply ships. But I'm responsible for keeping these people alive. 15,000 colonists, and I'm failing them." Before Jin-woo could answer, the door burst open. Dr. Lee Min-ho ran in, his hair messy and his clothes dirty from working in the repair bay. "The long-range sensors picked up something," he said, breathing hard. "Ships. Lots of them." Hana felt her heart jump. "Earth ships? Supply vessels?" Dr. Lee's face went pale. "I don't think so. The sensor readings are strange. The ships are huge, much bigger than anything Earth has built, and there are so many of them." Jin-woo grabbed Dr. Lee's shoulders. "How many ships?" "At least 300. Maybe more. They're still too far away to get a clear count." Hana felt the room start to spin. She sat down hard in her chair. "Who else knows about this?" "Just us," Dr. Lee said. "I came straight here from the sensor room." "How long until they get here?" Jin-woo asked. 2 days, maybe 3. They're moving fast, but they're still at the edge of the system." Hana tried to think clearly, but panic was creeping into her mind. Unknown ships heading toward their defenseless colony. No way to call for help. No way to fight back if these visitors were hostile. "What about weapons?" she asked Jin-woo. "We have mining, lasers, and some old security rifles. My security force has 200 people, but most of them are just colonists with basic training. We're not soldiers." "The mining equipment," Dr. Lee said suddenly. "We could modify some of the heavy machinery. Turn the excavators into weapons. Platforms, maybe." Jin-woo looked doubtful. "That would take time we might not have." Hana stood up and walked back to the window. The crowd in the plaza had grown larger. Soon they would want answers she didn't have. Soon they would want protection she couldn't give them. "We need to prepare for the worst," she said. Start moving people to the underground mining tunnels. They're the strongest structures we have. What about the surface facilities? Dr. Lee asked. We'll do what we can to defend them, but if we have to choose between buildings and people, we choose people. Jinwoo nodded. I'll start organizing evacuation routes. But Hana, what do I tell my security teams? They're going to ask what we're facing. Hana looked out at the red sky. Somewhere beyond that sky, unknown ships were heading their way. Ships that could mean rescue, or could mean the end of everything they had built on this world. Tell them the truth, she said. We don't know who's coming, we don't know what they want, but we're going to be ready for anything. As Jinwoo and Dr. Lee left to carry out their tasks, Hana remained at the window. The crowd below was getting louder. Soon she would have to go down and face them. She would have to tell 15,000 frightened people that help might be coming, or death might be coming, and she had no way to know which dot the red sun climbed higher in the alien sky, and Kim Hana prepared her colony for the unknown. The alien ships filled the sky like dark clouds. Choi Soo-jin pressed herself against the wall of the mining tunnel and watched through her scope as the massive vessels hung over New Busan Colony. Each ship was the size of a city block, with strange curves and spikes that hurt to look at. They're not human, whispered Yoon Taek beside her. The young engineer was shaking as he held his modified mining laser. Look at those designs. No human would build ships like that. Soo-jin had to agree. In her years as a soldier on Earth, she had seen every type of human spacecraft. These were something else entirely, something that made her skin crawl just by looking at them. The first landing pod slammed into the industrial sector with sounds like thunder. Soo-jin counted at least 50 impacts, each one sending up clouds of dust and debris. Then the pods opened. The creatures that poured out were nightmares, made real. They stood 8 feet tall on 6 legs that ended in razor-sharp claws. Their bodies were covered in natural armor that looked like black metal. Each one carried weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. Forthans, breathed Kang Seoho, the miner who had been making speeches in the plaza. I heard stories about them, from traders. They enslave entire worlds. Soo-jin adjusted her rifle and tried to count the enemy forces. More pods were landing every minute, and each one held at least 20 of the insect-like creatures. The math was simple and terrifying. They were outnumbered 50-1. Orders, Corporal? Asked one of her team members. Most of them were colonists who had volunteered to fight, but they looked to her because she was the only real soldier among them. We stick to the plan, Soo-jin said, trying to keep her voice steady. Hit and run. Make them pay for every meter, then fall back to the next position. The Vorthans moved through the colony with brutal efficiency. Their energy weapons cut through the colony's defenses like paper. The security barriers that had taken months to build were destroyed in minutes. Soo-jin led her team through the maintenance tunnels toward the first ambush point. They could hear the alien creatures above them, their clawed feet clicking on the metal floors. The sound reminded her of giant spiders. Here, she whispered, pointing to a junction where 3 tunnels met. Yoon Taek, can you rig that support? Beam to fall? The engineer nodded and pulled out his tools. His hands were steadier now that he had something to do. Give me 2 minutes. They didn't have 2 minutes. The clicking sounds were getting closer, and Soo-jin could hear the aliens talking in their harsh, buzzing language. She motioned for her team to take positions behind the metal crates that lined the tunnel walls. The first Vorthan came around the corner just as Yoon Taek finished his work. The creature was even more terrifying up close. Its 4 eyes glowed with red light, and its mouth was full of teeth like broken glass. Soo-jin waited until 3 more aliens joined the first one, then gave the signal. Her team opened fire with everything they had while Yoon Taek triggered his explosive charge. The modified mining lasers were designed to cut through rock, and they did damage to the alien armor. But not enough damage. The creatures stumbled and roared with pain, but they kept coming. Their return fire filled the tunnel with deadly energy beams. One of Soo-jin's volunteers, a young woman named Oh Sunmi, who worked in the medical bay, screamed as a Vorthan beam burned through her shoulder. Soo-jin dragged her to safety behind a larger crate while the others kept shooting. Fall back, Soo-jin shouted over the noise of weapons fire. Next position. They retreated deeper into the tunnels, carrying their wounded. Behind them, more Vorthons poured into the junction. The aliens were learning fast, using their superior numbers to flank the human positions. At the second ambush point, Sujin found Park Jinwoo waiting with 20 more defenders. The security chief looked grim as he watched his people prepare their weapons. "How bad is it up there?" he asked. "Bad," Sujin replied, helping Oh Sunmi sit down against the tunnel wall. "They're not just raiders. This is a full invasion force. Administrator Kim is trying to reach the underground command center," Jinwoo said. "We need to buy her time." "How much time?" "As much as we can give her." The Vorthons found them again within the hour. This time they came from 2 directions, at once proving they had mapped the tunnel system. The battle was fierce but short. Human weapons simply couldn't match the alien technology. Sujin watched in horror as a Vorthon energy weapon melted straight through a steel support beam. Another alien used some kind of sonic device that made the humans drop their weapons and clutch their ears in pain. "Everyone out!" Jinwoo yelled as the tunnel started to collapse from the alien weapons fire. "Get to the deep mines." They ran through the darkness, guided by emergency lights that flickered and failed one by one. The clicking sounds of Vorthon claws followed them, sometimes close, sometimes far away. The aliens were herding them deeper underground, cutting off escape routes to the surface. When they finally reached the main mining complex 5 levels down, Sujin found hundreds of colonists already there. Families huddled together in the machinery spaces between the great excavators. Children cried while their parents tried to comfort them with lies about rescue coming soon. Dr. Lee Minho met them at the entrance to the complex. His clothes were torn and his face was dirty, but his eyes were bright with desperate energy. "I've been working on something," he said, leading them to a storage room filled with mining charges. "If we can't fight them with guns, maybe we can fight them with explosives." "What do you have in mind?" Jinwoo asked. "The fusion reactors that power the mining equipment. If we overload them at the right moment, we can bring down entire sections of tunnel on top of the aliens." Sujin looked around the storage room at the stacks of explosive charges. It wasn't much against an army of aliens, but it was something, and right now something was better than nothing. "Show us how," she said. Outside in the tunnels, the clicking sounds were getting closer. The Vorthons were coming and there was nowhere left to run. But maybe, just maybe, they could make the aliens pay a heavy price for their victory. The war for New Busan was far from over. Oh Sunmi wiped the sweat from her forehead as she bandaged another wounded colonist. The medical supplies were almost gone, and she was using torn clothing to stop bleeding wounds. Around her in the deep mining chamber, the smell of fear and unwashed bodies made the air thick and hard to breathe. 3 weeks had passed since the aliens first landed. 3 weeks of hiding in the darkness while the Vorthons hunted them through the tunnels above. Half the colony was gone now, some dead, some captured, some simply missing in the maze of passages that honeycomb the planet's crust. "How is he?" asked Kim Hana, kneeling beside the wounded miner that Sunmi was treating. "He'll live, but that burn on his leg is infected," Sunmi replied quietly. "I need real medicine, not just clean rags and hope." Hana nodded, but said nothing. They both knew there was no medicine left. The colony's medical bay was in the hands of the aliens now, along with most of their equipment and supplies. Across the chamber, BAE Hyunwoo hunched over his makeshift radio equipment. The communications officer had been working day and night to break through the alien jamming signals that blocked all their transmissions. His eyes were red from staring at screens, and his hands shook from too much stimulant medication. "Anything?" Hana asked him. "Static," Hyunwoo said without looking up. "The Vorthons have some kind of interference field around the whole planet. Even if Earth sent rescue ships, we couldn't contact them." A child began crying somewhere in the darkness. The sound was quickly muffled by a parent's hand, but not before everyone in the chamber tensed up. Sound carried far in the tunnels and too much noise could bring the aliens down on them. "We need to do something about the crying," whispered Park Jinwoo as he joined their group. The security chief looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 weeks. The sound discipline is breaking down. They're children, Hana said. Scared, hungry children. I know. But if the Vorthans hear them... Nobody needed him to finish that sentence. They had all heard the sounds that came from the upper levels at night. Sounds of torture and worse things. The aliens seemed to enjoy causing pain. A new sound echoed through the tunnels, a deep, rhythmic thumping that made the walls vibrate. Everyone in the chamber froze and listened. Sonic drills, said Dr. Lee Minho as he emerged from behind one of the big mining machines. His face was pale with exhaustion. They're trying to break through the sealed blast doors. How long do we have? Jinwoo asked. At this rate? Maybe 6 hours before they breach the main barrier. Hana closed her eyes and tried to think. 6 hours to live, or 6 hours to figure out some impossible escape? Neither option seemed very good. What about Captain Im's mission? She asked. Any word from his team? Jinwoo's expression grew even darker. John Mira made it back 2 hours ago. She's the only survivor. The news hit Hana like a physical blow. Captain Im Donghyuk had been their best pilot, and Hwang Yuman had been an expert with explosives. If they couldn't make it to the surface supply depot, nobody could. What did Mira report? She asked. The surface is crawling with alien patrols, hunter-killer drones that can track human heat signatures through solid rock. Im's team never had a chance. As if summoned by their conversation, John Mira appeared at Hana's shoulder. The young scout's uniform was burned and torn, and she moved like someone who had seen too much death. Administrator, Mira said, her voice hoarse from breathing tunnel dust. I mapped their patrol routes during my escape. They're being careful, but they have patterns. If we could get a small team past their perimeter... To do what? Jinwoo asked. The supply depot is destroyed, and we can't get to the spaceport. The emergency beacon, Mira said. There's a quantum transmitter in the communications tower. It's damaged but not destroyed. If someone could reach it and jury-rig a distress signal, through their jamming field? Hyunwoo looked up from his equipment. Impossible. Maybe not impossible, said Dr. Lee slowly. If we could overload one of the mining fusion reactors at the exact moment someone activates the beacon, the energy pulse might punch through their interference. Just for a few seconds. That would kill whoever sets off the reactor, Jinwoo pointed out. And probably whoever tries to send the message, Mira added. The communication tower is in the middle of their main base now. Silence fell over the group as they absorbed this information. A suicide mission with almost no chance of success, just to send a message that might never be received. The sonic drilling got louder, and dust began falling from the ceiling. Somewhere in the darkness, another child started crying and was quickly hushed. Even if the message got through, Hana said, Earth is 47 light-years away. Help couldn't arrive for months, maybe years. Better than no hope at all, Mira said quietly. Before anyone could respond, a new sound filled the tunnels. Not the mechanical drilling of the aliens, but something else. A voice, speaking in the harsh, buzzing language of the Vorthans, but somehow projected through speakers that made it echo from every direction at once. What's that? Whispered Oh Sunmi. Dr. Lee pulled out a small translation device, a piece of equipment that some traitor had left behind months ago. He fiddled with the controls until the alien words became understandable. Humans in the deep places, the voice said in mechanical-sounding English. You have fought well, but your struggle is finished. Surrender now and you will serve. Continue to resist, and you will suffer before you serve. You have one rotation of this world to decide. The message repeated several times, then stopped. In the silence that followed, Hana could hear people whispering in the darkness. Some voices sounded relieved. Surrender meant life even as slaves. Other voices sounded angry, ready to fight to the end. How long is one rotation? She asked Dr. Lee. About 26 Earth hours. They're giving us a day to give up. And if we don't? Dr. Lee adjusted his translation device to scan for other alien transmissions. After a few minutes, his face went white. They're bringing in pain amplifiers, he whispered. Devices that stimulate nerve endings. They plan to torture everyone they capture, then broadcast the sounds to make the rest of us surrender. Hana looked around at the faces of her people. Exhausted colonists who had trusted her to keep them safe. Children who should have been playing in sunlight instead of hiding in caves. Elderly people who deserved better than to die as alien slaves. The sonic drilling resumed, closer now. Time was running out and all their choices were terrible ones. Fight and die. Surrender and suffer. Or try an impossible rescue mission that would probably fail. But as Hana watched her people huddle together in the darkness, she realized something important. They were still together. They were still human, and as long as they had breath in their bodies, they could still choose their own fate. Gather everyone, she told Jinwoo. It's time to vote. The Vorthon sonic drill finally broke through the last barrier, just as the colony's vote was ending. Choi Sujin pressed her back against the mining equipment and readied her weapon as the aliens poured through the breach. Around her, the remaining colonists prepared for their final stand. Then the world exploded. The tunnel shook so violently that everyone was thrown to the ground. But this wasn't the aliens breaking in. This was something from above. Massive explosions that made the entire planet tremble, followed by a sound that Sujin hadn't heard in months. The roar of human spacecraft engines. "What's happening?" shouted Kim Hana over the noise. Bae Hyunwoo was frantically working his radio controls, his face bright with sudden hope. "I'm picking up transmissions, military codes, Earth Defense Force frequencies." The Vorthon creatures that had been advancing through the tunnel stopped and began chattering in their buzzing language. Some of them turned and ran back the way they came. Others stood confused, waiting for orders that weren't coming. "The jamming field is down," Hyunwoo yelled. "Someone's hitting their control ships." On his small screen, coded messages began appearing, faster than he could read them. Ship identifications, battle coordinates, landing zones. The words that made Sujin's heart leap were repeated over and over. 7th Fleet responding, 7th Fleet responding. Above them, the battle raged with an intensity that shook dust from every surface in the tunnels. The sound of energy weapons and explosions was constant now, but different from the alien weapons they had grown used to. These were human weapons. Fighting back. "Major Shin Yuna to New Busan survivors," came a voice over Hyunwoo's radio. "This is the 501st Drop Shock Regiment. If you can hear this transmission, get to the deepest shelter you can find. We're coming down hard." Dr. Lee Minho grabbed the radio microphone. "This is New Busan Colony. We have 8,000 survivors in the deep mining complex, level 7. The aliens are in the tunnels with us." "Copy that, New Busan. Help is on the way. Stay down and stay alive." The remaining Vorthons in their tunnel seemed to get new orders. They charged forward with desperate fury, their energy weapons lighting up the darkness. But something had changed. The aliens moved like creatures who knew they were losing. Sujin and her defenders fought back with everything they had. The battle was fierce but short. When the last alien fell, they could hear new sounds from the upper levels, human voices shouting military commands, the distinctive whine of Earth Defense Force equipment. "Let's move up," Sujin said. "I want to see these rescuers for myself." They climbed through the tunnels, following the sounds of battle. At each level, they found evidence of the war that had been raging above their heads. Alien bodies lay scattered, beside broken human equipment. The walls were scarred with weapon burns and explosive damage. When they finally reached the surface level, Sujin stopped and stared in amazement. The mining complex was crawling with human soldiers in advanced power, armor. These weren't the lightly equipped security forces of the colony. These were professional warriors with weapons and equipment that belonged in military novels. A soldier in officer's armor approached them. Her helmet retracted to show a young woman's face marked by combat experience. "I'm Lieutenant Song Min-soo, Special Forces," she said. "Are you the resistance fighters we heard about?" "What's left of us?" Sujin replied. "How did you find us so fast?" "Fast?" Song Min-soo laughed grimly. "We've been fighting our way across 3 star systems to get here. The Admiral thought we were too late." She pointed upward where the sky was filled with human spacecraft. Fighters danced between the larger alien vessels, firing precision strikes that lit up the atmosphere. Transport ships were landing in the distance, bringing more troops and equipment. The Fleet? Sujin asked. Admiral Nam Ji-hoon's 7th Fleet plus Federation allies. 300 ships, 40,000 troops. We came as soon as we got your colony's last transmission 8 months ago. But the communication array was broken. Your Dr. Lee's emergency beacon worked, Song Min-soo explained. Took the message. 8 months to reach Earth through normal space, but it got there. The whole galaxy knows what happened here. As they talked, more human forces were arriving. Sujin watched in amazement as heavy equipment and medical supplies were unloaded from transport ships. These soldiers moved with the efficiency of people who had done this before, who knew how to fight aliens and win. What about the Vorthan ships? Asked Dr. Lee Minho as he joined their group. Song Min-soo's smile was sharp. Admiral Nam brought some new toys, kinetic lance weapons that fire relativistic projectiles. Their flagship found out what happens when you try to retreat from an angry human fleet. The sounds of battle were moving away from the colony now as human forces pursued the fleeing aliens. In the distance, Sujin could see the wreckage of several Vorthan vessels burning on the planet's surface. Is it over? Asked Kim Hana as she emerged from the tunnels with a group of colonist children. For you, yes, Song Min-soo replied. For us, this is just another stop. There are other colonies under attack, other humans who need help. One of the children, a little girl who couldn't have been more than 6 years old, walked up to Song Min-soo and hugged her armored leg. Thank you for coming, the girl said in a small voice. Song Min-soo knelt down and gently patted the child's head. We promised we would never leave anyone behind, she said. Humans don't abandon their own. As the sun set over New Busan, human and Federation medical teams were already setting up field hospitals. Engineers were assessing the damage to the colony's infrastructure. Security teams were hunting down the last hidden aliens. But most importantly, families were reuniting. People who had thought they would never see each other again were crying and laughing and holding each other tight. Sujin found herself standing beside Jaeon Mira, both of them watching the organized chaos of the rescue operation. I can't believe they came, Mira said quietly. They didn't just come, Sujin replied, watching as another transport ship landed with more supplies. They brought everyone. In the sky above them, human warships maintained their patrol patterns. The message was clear to any remaining aliens. In the system. This world is under our protection now. For the first time in 8 months, the colonists of New Busan went to sleep knowing they were not alone. High above New Busan, Admiral Nam Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the final phase of the battle unfold. The Vorthan fleet that had seemed so powerful just hours ago was now scattered and burning across the star system. Enemy. Flagship is trying to jump to hyperspace, reported his tactical officer. An Seojin's fighter squadron is in position, Nam Ji-hoon replied calmly. Let them show the aliens what happens when you threaten human civilians. On the main screen, they watched as 12 human fighters appeared around the massive alien vessel. The fighters were small compared to the enemy ship, but they moved with deadly precision. Their quantum targeting systems locked onto the alien vessel's weak points with accuracy that seemed impossible. Firing kinetic lances, came An Seojin's voice over the communication system. The relativistic projectile struck the Vorthan flagship at 90% of light speed. The alien ship simply disappeared in a flash of energy that briefly outshone the system's star. Target eliminated, Seojin reported. All remaining enemy vessels are either destroyed or fleeing the system. On the planet below, Colonel Ryu Jae-sung was coordinating the ground operation from his mobile command center. His mechanized infantry had taken control of every major alien position, but the real victory was happening in the tunnels beneath the colony. Sir, called Sergeant Kim Dae-ho from his engineering station. The colonist resistance fighters want to help with the tunnel clearing operations. They know the layout better than we do. Let them help, Ryu replied. But keep our people close. I don't want any civilian casualties after we've come this far. In the depths of the mining complex, Choi Sujin was leading a combined team of human soldiers and colony defenders through passages she knew by heart. The remaining Vorthans were trapped and desperate, but they were also in unfamiliar territory, fighting people who had spent weeks learning every secret of the underground maze. Next junction is where they'll make their stand, she told Major Shin Yuna. 3 tunnels meet there, and it's the last position before the main evacuation route. How many aliens? Shin asked, checking her weapon systems. Maybe 20, but they have some kind of energy barrier generator. We couldn't get past it before. Shin smiled and patted the advanced plasma rifle at her side. These aren't mining lasers, Corporal. We've been developing these weapons specifically to fight Vorthons for the past 8 months. When they reached the junction, Sujin saw that the aliens had indeed set up their final defensive position. A shimmering energy field blocked the tunnel, and behind it the Vorthons waited with their weapons ready. Dr. Nounmi, are you in position? Shin spoke into her radio. Ready with the virus? Came the reply from the xenobiologist who had joined the invasion force. I just need them to activate their communication network. They'll have to coordinate their defense, Shin said. When they do, hit them with everything you've got. The battle was brief but intense. The Vorthons opened fire as soon as the human forces came into view, their energy weapons filling the tunnel with deadly light. But the Earth soldiers' armor absorbed the shots that would have killed the colonists, and their plasma rifles punched through the alien energy barrier like it wasn't there. More importantly, Dr. No's computer virus worked exactly as designed. When the trapped Vorthons tried to coordinate their defense, their communication implants began malfunctioning. The aliens stumbled and fell, clutching their heads as their own technology turned against them. Virus deployed successfully, Dr. No reported. Their neural networks are shutting down. Within minutes, the last Vorthon resistance on New Busan was eliminated. On the surface, the cleanup was already beginning. Human engineering teams worked alongside colonists to assess the damage and begin repairs. The colony's infrastructure was badly damaged, but it could be rebuilt. Administrator Kim called Dr. Lee Minho as he emerged from the ruins of the communication center. The quantum array can be repaired. We'll be back in contact with Earth within a few days. Kim Hana nodded, but she was looking at something else. In the main plaza where angry crowds had gathered just weeks ago, human medical teams were treating wounded colonists while children played around the landed spacecraft. Dr. Lee, she said, how many people did we lose? 7,000, he replied, quietly. Almost half the colony. The number hit her like a physical blow. 7,000 people dead because she couldn't protect them. 7,000 families destroyed because help had taken so long to arrive. Administrator. A voice behind her made Hana turn around. Admiral Nam Ji-hoon was walking toward her, his uniform clean despite the battle he had just fought. Admiral, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry we were too late to save everyone, Nam replied. But I want you to know this will never happen again. What do you mean? The President and the Federation Council are meeting right now to sign the new Busan Accords. No human colony will ever stand alone again. We're establishing permanent defense stations in every system with human settlements. Hana felt tears starting in her eyes. The people who died fighting for something important, Nam said firmly. They showed the galaxy that humans don't give up. They showed us that our colonies are worth any price to defend. Their sacrifice means that no other human children will have to hide in tunnels while aliens hunt them. As they talked, transport ships were arriving with supplies and equipment to rebuild the colony. But more importantly, they were bringing people, families of the colonists, volunteers who wanted to help with reconstruction, and soldiers who would stay to make sure New Busan was never threatened again. What happens now? Hana asked. Now, you rebuild, Nam said. But not alone. Earth is sending its best engineers. The Federation is providing advanced defense systems, and the military is establishing a permanent base here. New Busan will become one of the strongest human settlements in this part of the galaxy. That evening, as the alien sun set over the colony for the first time in weeks without the shadow of enemy ships, the survivors gathered in the main plaza. Someone had found an old Earth music player, and familiar songs filled the air. Children, who had spent weeks in fear, were laughing again. Families were reuniting with relatives they thought were dead, and everywhere, human soldiers in their advanced armor stood guard, making sure the celebration was safe. Choi Soo-jin found herself standing with Jonmira and Osunmi, watching the people they had fought so hard to protect. Think it will really be different this time? Mira asked. Look around, Sujin replied, pointing at the human warships that maintained their protective patrol above the colony. Earth didn't just send a rescue mission, they sent a message to the entire galaxy. What message? Oh, Sunmi asked. Sujin smiled as she watched human engineers working side by side with colonists to repair the damage. That we don't abandon our own, that we'll travel across the galaxy to protect a single human child, that anyone who threatens our people will face the full fury of Earth's military. As the stars came out in the alien sky, the people of New Busan looked up and saw something they hadn't seen in months, the lights of human ships keeping watch over their world. They were no longer alone. They would never be alone again. And across the galaxy, other species took note of what had happened at New Busan. The humans had traveled 47 light-years to save 8,000 colonists. They had brought 300 warships and 40,000 soldiers to rescue people who weren't even soldiers themselves. The message was clear to everyone who cared to listen. Humanity protects its own, no matter the cost, no matter the distance, no matter the odds. The age of humanity standing alone in the galaxy was over.